Colonel Rob Maness has a lifelong record of providing dedicated service to this nation. Having worked his way up from the enlisted ranks to full colonel, he served our country for more than 32 years. He has served as a bomber squadron commander, bomb disposal technician, Joint Chiefs of Staff operations officer, assisted the national security team with the campaign plan for the global war on terrorism. He authored the first theater nuclear war plan and served as the vice commander of America's largest airborne intelligence wing. Colonel Rob Maness is a true American hero. This is Rob Maness Live.
Saying that he was sorry. Jay, if you're really sorry, you wouldn't be running. If you really understood the ramifications of what you said about an innocent mom and her children, you know Todd Gilbert. You served with him. Jennifer would come to the General Assembly. She would bring her children. We would see them run in the hallways. They were 2 and 5 years old at the time. This wasn't a hypothetical. This wasn't some figure that you know from far away. You actually know Todd. This is a flesh and blood, real husband. Jennifer is a real mom. These are real kids. How in the world could you ever show compassion and comfort a grieving mother that has ever lost a child to violence? Because, Virginians, there is no cry like the cry of a mother that has lost her child. A prosecutor knows this because they've stood in that courtroom. Jay Jones has never understood this because he's not a prosecutor. He's a politician trying to save his career.
Welcome back to More War Monday. The Rob Maness Show's live on Worldview Tube and our X Spaces simulcast. The political war on American values, our children, and our parents is ongoing. And you know what? Virginia is ground zero in this political war. Parents holding school boards accountable there were labeled terrorists, spied on, and investigated. Parents fighting against boys being allowed to be in girls' locker rooms that led to multiple rapes were even arrested and prosecuted there. And now Attorney General candidate Jay Jones is exposed. You saw it right there. He's exposed for saying he wants to see his opponent's family, including his 2 small children, murdered as part of the political process. And he hasn't even been called on to drop out of the race by senior Democrat elected officials. I believe the root of all this lunacy is our government-run public school systems. And that's why I've long advocated for funding students over systems, and why I'm engaging right here in my new home state, Mississippi, to help further that cause and provide more education freedom for our parents and our students. Well, my guest today is the leader of our movement, especially among us parents. To get this mission accomplished nationally, I'm pleased to have Dr. Corey DeAngelis on as my guest today. First time he's been on the show. Corey is a senior fellow at the American Culture Project and a visiting fellow at the American Institute for Economic Research. He's been labeled the school choice evangelist and called, quote, the most effective school choice advocate since Milton Friedman. He's a regular on Fox News and frequently appears in the Wall Street Journal. DeAngelis also the executive director at Educational Freedom Institute, a senior fellow at Reason Foundation, an adjunct scholar at Cato Institute, and a board member at the Liberty Justice Center. And he holds a PhD in education policy from the University of Arkansas. We'll forgive him that, us Mississippi and LSU and Alabama fans. He's the author of The Parent Revolution, Rescuing Your Kids from the Radicals Ruining Our Schools. And if you haven't read that book, folks, you better get a copy of it. Corey, welcome to the Rob Maness Show, sir.
Hey, Rod, thanks for having me.
Hey, I appreciate you coming on. I appreciate you having the time. You know, I feel like I know you, but we've never actually met in person before. But I've always supported your effort because you are the one American on social media that is everywhere when it comes to school choice policy and advocacy. But it's your mission has gone beyond even public schools and school choice and education freedom because of what we're seeing in our society now. This thing with Jay Jones, the Democrat nominee for Attorney General in Virginia, just blows my mind.
Yeah, and it really
especially the
highlights how
response.
it really shows how the teachers union is nothing more than an arm of the Democrat Party. We already followed the money and we saw that Randy Weingarten's union, Becky Pringle's unions at the national level funnel about 99% of their campaign contributions to Democrats. But now we're seeing this fall out of J. Two Bullets Jones in Virginia running for attorney general. He should drop out. I mean, the Fraternal Order of Police has called on him to drop out. Jason Miar is the incumbent attorney general there in Virginia, basically went scorched earth and forced him into retirement. I'd say it's amazing that he's still going on, Jay Jones, but the Virginia Education Association is still backing him. I mean, they could have made the argument before that they didn't know about these text messages, but once they've been called out about it publicly, they have turned off replies on their Twitter account, their X account. They blocked me on there. I emailed them about 5 times. They have blocked me from all of their email accounts, not even just their general one, but all of their individual members automatically block my emails now. So it just really goes to show you that these so-called educational institutions are really more just political advocacy groups, and they have no form of accountability whatsoever. I mean, the public wants to know about this. Virginia parents want to know why the people responsible for educating kids are promoting a guy who wishes death upon children just because they happen to be his political opponents. He called for not just, he didn't just fantasize about shooting his political opponent, the former Speaker of the Virginia House. He wished death upon his children. And because he said, according to those text messages and the reporting, that he just wanted that guy his political opponent, to change his views. And he thought that if his wife could see her children die in her arms, that maybe then he would change. I mean, that is some sick, demented stuff. And for the teachers union to continue backing him, it just goes to show you we need school choice. Jay Jones should drop out. But we should defund the Virginia Education Association, and teachers who are not on board with this, is incumbent upon them to hold a union accountable to pull their dues. Stop funding these monsters that don't represent your views. You can now get alternative insurance from the Teacher Freedom Alliance for free. Donors are covering the cost. So there's no excuse. If you're a conservative teacher in Virginia and you see that this is just disgusting rhetoric, even if you're a Democrat, I mean, how could your union go forward and endorse a guy who wishes death upon children? You're the teachers union. What are you doing here? Pull your funding, get alternative insurance from Teacher Freedom Alliance, and have a clear conscience.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things that really bothers me the most, Corey, is that the people that are Democrats, teachers, whatever, they're still funding Jay Jones's campaign. The teachers are still paying their dues to the Virginia Education Association, probably, just because he's a Democrat. Where have we gotten in this nation? I mean, this is just it's not small, but this is a piece of the bigger picture that I want to try to paint here today, that just makes it even more important that we do things like follow the money, like you talked about. I mean, do the teachers associations, the unions, do they get public funding?
Well, indirectly. So the government school system is funded by taxpayer money to the tune of about $1 trillion a year nationwide, $20,000 a kid per year in the government school system. And that money is basically extorted from teachers to pay for these dues, because the district officials, the union officials, get them into these back rooms and basically tell them that if you don't pay your union dues, you're going to get sued and you're going to be in big trouble. And so they kind of twist the arm, put their thumbs on the scale. It's a form of Stockholm syndrome. They take these teachers hostage, and the teachers don't know any better. They just want to get into their role and do their job. They want to sign the paperwork and get on with it. But now there's no excuse for that. We're trying to educate the American public, specifically teachers. You don't have to fund these monsters anymore. And in fact, if they coerce you to do so, that is a violation of your First Amendment rights, because you can't be forced as a public employee to pay for your political opponents. It's as simple as that. It's a First Amendment violation. We won at the Supreme Court in a case called the Janus decision back in 2018. So teachers need to opt out en masse. This is how you get people like Randy Weingarten to change their tune. And Rob, I will say this problem, this rot, does start in the government schools. I mean, why do you think Zohran Mamdani's in first place in New York City right now? He's a socialist. Well, you have kids, millions of kids a year in America going through the government school system for 13 hours a day, for 7 hours of their day, for 13 years of their lives. And they're learning that big government's the solution to all their problems. Of course, they're going to go vote for Zohran Mamdani, but we got to strike at the root. Conservatives can't just have more kids to fight back. The radical left has figured out that they can infiltrate the government school system. They don't even have to have their own kids anymore, and they can shape the direction of our country by using this brainwashing tool that authoritarians have seen time and time again throughout history. I mean, Lenin was credited with, quoted as saying that if you give us a child for 4 years, he will forever be a Bolshevik. So the authoritarians throughout history have seen that centralized control of the school system can mold the minds of future generations to keep themselves in power. And look, this starts at the very top with Randy Weingarten. She's promoting her book right now, calling conservatives fascist. You have people right now celebrating Charlie Kirk's assassination. Most of the time when I expose them on social media, they happen to be tied to the school system, either teachers. There's one in Chicago right now who was mocking the death of Charlie Kirk at their No Kings protest yesterday in Chicago. She's an elementary school teacher making over $100,000 a year in Chicago public schools. So don't tell me that the teachers are underpaid when it comes to these unionized districts where they have no accountability. But I mean, the rot has gotten so bad, Rob. I think you need to free families with school choice. We need to free teachers who aren't on board with this. And I think once enough of them leave, the union bosses will have to scratch their head and say, one, we don't have enough money to pay for politics anymore. And two, well, maybe if we start to focus on member benefits and education and not indoctrination, well, then maybe we won't lose as much money. And so you need competition. You need people to be able to vote with their feet, not just parents, but teachers too. And one last thing I'll say is that the NEA, which is the national organization of the Virginia Education Association, it happens to be the largest labor union in the country. They passed resolutions at their annual meeting this year that had everything to do with politics, read more like a declaration of war on the Trump administration than anything else, had nothing to do with education. And in one resolution, they spent thousands of dollars and they passed it to call President Trump a fascist. And in that resolution to call Trump a fascist, they misspelled the word fascism, of course, because that's just what we expect. It's beyond parody every day. But they're supposed to be representing educators, and they can't even spell when they're trying to call names, trying to label our president as a fascist. But it just goes to show you, Rob, this starts at the very top. And I think it's the union bosses more than anybody else. There's a lot of good teachers who are not okay with this, but it's up to them. They can't just say, I'm not on board with this. They have to actually act and defund the Virginia Education Association. And if they're not going to pull their endorsement of Jay Jones, I mean, it's just beyond the pale. I mean, this guy called for death upon children over a political disagreement, and you have the people who are supposed to be educating the children endorsing him and then not providing any statement as to why they're continuing to do so. But they did sign on to a letter that was circulated just today with a bunch of progressive groups doubling down, saying that they still support him. So they're not just avoiding the conversation. They did sign on to a letter saying they still support Jay Jones. And Rob, to get to your main question, I don't know where we go from here, but we do need to reform the school system. That'll be a good start.
Yeah, I'm with you. Look, I'm not opposed to public school teachers. I have my dad's family, his brothers and sisters. There are 3 or 4 public school teachers between the directly related and in-laws and things. So that is not the issue for me. It never has been. It's about competition so that we can eliminate this ideology, that indoctrination that's being foisted on our kids. And and it's Marxism is what it is. And now you get this Mandami guy who is a Marxist Islamist background individual on the city of 9/11. In the
Yeah,
city of
it's
9/11, it's
crazy.
amazing. Yeah. Well, we got to take a
Oh,
break,
and
but
yeah,
when we come
I
back,
totally agree. I totally agree with you. Like, it's not the public school teacher's fault. It's the public school system's fault and the union boss's
yeah,
fault. And my mom just retired from the public school system after 3 decades. So, and she
yeah.
gets it too. She's fully supportive of school choice. She's fully supportive of teacher choice, getting out of the unions as well. I mean, Texas isn't as bad as Illinois or California, but you
Mhm.
still have school districts here in Texas that push a far left agenda as well. Even though we've banned critical race theory here, they still say they teach it. They get exposed by accuracy and media journalists that have recorded them.
Yeah.
Just saying, we're just going to move the goalposts. We'll call it SEL. We'll call it mental health, but they're still doing the
Mhm.
same stuff that they're doing in the blue states.
Oh, they sure are. It's happening here in Mississippi too. Still, and we've got to get our arms around that. We got to take a commercial break. When we come back, we'll see a little clip from governor candidate Winsome Sears and talk about why Spanberger is not opposing Jay Jones, but also why are racists going after the black African American woman, Marine Corps veteran Winsome Spears. We'll be right back with Corey DeAngelis.
You woke up with a sore throat and a low-grade fever. You know you are getting sick, so here's your choices. You can get sicker and miss work. Try to see a doctor this week or sit hours in a crowded waiting room at urgent care.
I have a smarter option for you. Open your medical emergency kit. Match your symptoms to doctor-recommended prescription in your booklet and take the right meds now and get well faster.
This is not a first aid kit. It's like having an urgent care in your home. It includes doctor-prescribed medications to treat over 39 medical issues like respiratory infections, strep throat, pneumonia, UTIs, and more.
No waiting to see the doctor and no standing in line at the pharmacy. It's right here.
Every home should have at least one medical emergency kit, and here's how to order.
Go to worldviewhealthcare.com. Your kit to treat dozens of common and serious illnesses is rushed to your door. worldviewhealthcare.com. That's worldviewhealthcare.com.
The emergency kit available at worldviewhealthcare.com. Make sure you don't have to go to urgent care. I got pneumonia. I didn't have to go. I took this last year. Stayed at home. Went to bed.
I don't understand why you just can't come forward and say he needs to go. I mean, we're talking about murder. We're talking about someone's life being taken from them. Have you nothing to say about that? Are you not going to address it? Really, you can't go any further. You're a governor. You're supposed to stand up for all the people. Are you saying political murder is all right?
Welcome back to the Rob Maness Show. It's More War Monday. It breaks my heart to have to put the war on American values, our kids, our parents, and our society on More War Monday. But we really are in a war, and the other side is starting to go kinetic. That's a military guy's term for we're starting to see violence repetitively and in larger and larger numbers. It seems like every day something else happens. And we've got to stop that. And the core of this whole effort is the public school system. My guest today is Corey DeAngelis, who is known as the school choice evangelist. And I have to agree with that characterization, Corey, but he's also a PhD and an author of a great book. You got to go get it. Go on Amazon and search his name. It pops right up there. But it's about stopping the crazy radicals from indoctrinating and destroying our children from the public school system. And that's what we've got to do. And that's why school choice and education freedom are so critically important. That was Winsome Sears, Marine Corps veteran, Republican candidate for governor of Virginia, the current lieutenant governor, talking to Abigail Spanberger, her Democrat opponent, who is a former CIA employee, now Congresswoman. And Corey, Spanberger tries to do her politics from a messaging perspective, from the center left perspective, is what I would be gracious and give her that piece. But she's extreme left, isn't she?
Yeah, I mean, she wants boys and girls sports, and she's endorsing Jay Jones. I mean, that's sick. She needs to drop out of the race herself if she's going to continue endorsing him. And I mean, when I saw that clip that you showed a second ago, Rob, of Winsome Sears repetitively asking her, like, you're really just not going to say anything about this? I mean, you're endorsing a guy who wished death upon children, and you can't just say that you condemn this and that you're not going to support him. I mean, Abigail's response to the moderator was basically that, well, the voters are going to decide. Yeah, well, the voters can decide, but yeah, he can still stay on the ballot, but you don't have to endorse him, right? So you're putting your thumb on the scale and trying to get the voters to vote for him. So it's not just the voters getting to decide. If the voters are just getting to decide, you take your endorsement off and then let the voters do what they're going to do, regardless of where you stand on the matter. But Abigail, this looked really strange there. When I first saw the clip, I thought it was like edited for a second. I had to go back and rewind it and check it out again because it was just so awkward and very well done by Winsome Sears with those effective pauses, just like letting her have that silence of like, you're really not going to say anything about this. And it was multiple times. The moderators asked her multiple times. It wasn't just this clip being taken out of context or anything. This was throughout the debate several times. And Abigail she just couldn't bring herself to say, you know what, I'm not going to endorse him anymore, but the voters can have their say. And if he wants to stay on the ballot, fine. But she didn't do that. She's sticking by him. And that's just, it's a really low position for her to be in. Hopefully it drags her down as well on election day, because Jay Jones, the polls have flipped. One just came out today by a coefficient showing Jason Miyares, the Republican candidate for Attorney General, up by 4 points. And the betting market shows a 70% chance of Jason Miyares, the Republican, winning the Attorney General race as well. So hopefully that has some effects that are beneficial for Winsome Sears, because it's just sick for Abigail to just not even look at Winsome Sears. I mean, that was another thing. It's like, why won't the white Abigail Spanberger even look at the black woman on stage? I mean, you can't even give her that modicum of like decency or respect to, maybe you don't respond directly to her question, but maybe look at her. I mean, it just was really off-putting, and hopefully voters see that going into election day. But the Virginia Education Association backing Winsome Sears, I just posted on X that statement that they signed into, backing Jay Jones, the guy who wished death upon children. It goes beyond the pale. And Abigail should be ashamed of attaching herself to Jay Jones as well.
Yeah, she should. You're following this race very closely. I have been too in the polling. I'm glad you brought up the polling. Yeah, Mayoris is really flipped and is getting more and more momentum. But Sears seems to be, I won't call it struggling, but the number, I mean, Spanberger shows ahead 5 to 7 points pretty consistently. What's going on there? And is there anything that the grassroots folks can get out there and help them do?
I mean, the race has tightened for the governor's race, so there's that. But yeah, it's hard to have a crystal ball to see exactly what's going on. I mean, obviously, Jason Miyares is the incumbent; he has that going for him. But the scandal was most closely tied to his opponent. Obviously, Jay Jones is Jason Miyares' opponent, whereas Abigail Spanberger endorsed Jay Jones, but she's not the actual person who said that in the text messages. So it's a little bit of a looser connection. So maybe that's why things haven't shifted as quickly. But I think post-debate, we're going to see the momentum continuing in Winsome's direction, especially after, I mean, there was another kind of viral piece of that debate where Winsome Sears was pressing Abigail on her position of having men going to girls' private spaces. And Abigail, again, she just sat there frozen. She went into this word salad response, and she did this with the media after the debate as well, and was just basically just like Kamala Harris, basically just saying a whole bunch of nothing, just going around in circles. And it's like, do you support boys and girls sports or not? And she just couldn't answer that during the debate. She basically indirectly responded by saying, well, we're going to leave it up to the local teachers unions in the area to figure that out. I'm not going to weigh in because she knows that the teachers unions have a lot of sway at the district level. And basically that's going to be the policy that is applied. That's why during the debate, they talked about Governor Youngkin doing an executive order saying, you know, we got to uphold Title IX. We got to protect women's spaces based on biological sex, not on made up gender identities. And so Abigail Spanberger has basically said this a roundabout way of saying that she does support boys and girls sports by saying we're going to leave it up to the teachers unions in the area. So of course they're going to inflict their lefty politics on young women and young girls.
You know, what's one of the things that's really disgusting is, by the way, Lieutenant Governor Sears, I mean, she was masterfully delivered those lines. And I have to agree with you when you said that she just did it in such a way that wasn't yelling, just like asking the question. And
it was very
Spanberger
awkward. It was like,
wouldn't
what?
even look.
Abigail's not going to respond.
Won't even look at her. And that gets into the rest of the stuff. You know, there's a clip online of Ms. Sears being yelled at a university baseball game by some white guy a few rows up, telling her to go back to Haiti. Talk about a racist attack there in public.
And you saw the Democrat. There was a Democrat county party or something in Virginia that had posted a racist picture depicting Winsome of being like a loud black woman or something. And they deleted it after massive pushback. And they issued a statement basically saying, well, we deleted it because some people perceived it to have racist undertones. Well, maybe because it did have racist undertones, and that's why you're deleting it, because you know you're wrong, and now you have egg on your face. And so, yeah, it's just disgusting that you have the Virginia Democrats kind of going through this kind of rhetoric. And remember at the beginning, kind of earlier in the campaign season, I believe it was at a school board meeting, one of the Abigail Spanberger supporters had a sign saying that if you're not going to let boys and girls bathrooms, then I'm not going to let, they were saying, I believe they were saying black people at water fountains. I mean, they were going back to Jim Crow era, having separate but equal, and all over this gender insanity stuff. It's like, if you care so much about having people who are confused going and invading girls' spaces, whether that's getting them injured on the soccer field or playing in their sports teams or taking away their scholarships from them, or going into more intimate places, more where you know, in locker rooms or bathrooms where there could be real big problems, like you mentioned earlier, that happened in Virginia in the past. And, you know, and they care about that so much that they're going to go and kind of pull this kind of racism by saying that we're going to go back to Jim Crow segregation if they don't get their way on the transgender insanity. It just goes to show you how far, you know, how crazy the far left has gone. And it's right front and center in this governor's race in Virginia. And I will say, there was a debate at the governor's race. It went well for Winsome Sears. Abigail looked extremely awkward and unlikable. People on X were telling me that she looked like Hillary Clinton, and they were getting Hillary Clinton vibes from Abigail, just so unlikable, just like a horrible person. And then with Jay Jones, you have his text message scandal. Even the polls are already showing, the betting markets are already showing he's done. He should drop out. He should listen to the fraternal order of police and drop out. He debated, and that debate didn't go well for him. Right after that debate where Jason Miyares was just sticking it to him again and again, every single question, he would go back and remind voters of the text messages. He would remind voters that Jay Jones is a political operative, not a legal operative. And so he has no business running for attorney general. Jason Miyares hit that over and over again. But where's the lieutenant governor's debate? You know, John Reed, the Republican's been calling for debate. He's a very respectful guy. There's no reason not to debate him unless you're afraid of him. And that's Senator Hashmi, the Democrat in Virginia, who's running for lieutenant governor, nowhere to be found. She knows it's a no-win situation for her to discuss the policy issues with this guys, because she is on the wrong side of every single 80-20 issue that the Republicans are winning on. And so That's another thing that should be addressed. Like there should be a lieutenant governor debate as well. I mean, the voters got to hear the attorney general debate. They got to hear the governor's debate. Well, where are the lieutenant governor? Where's the other statewide office candidates? Where's the lieutenant governor's debate? So I'd like to see that.
Yeah, I would too. I didn't realize that they weren't doing a lieutenant governor's debate. It's a terrible thing that they have to be so scared of their own policies that they can't run on them. Well, maybe they shouldn't get elected, folks. Don't vote for these people. Well, Corey, we got to take another commercial break. When we come back, we're going to show that very short clip of the school teacher. Lucy is her first name. And it's terrible. It's terrible. Mocking Charlie Kirk's murder. We'll be right back with Corey DeAngelis. Chicago school teacher Lucy Martinez. That's her right there, mocking Charlie Kirk's assassination just because there was a truck in front of her with a flag honoring Charlie going in front of her. So she gets riled up, but she's a public school teacher. Nathan Hale Elementary in Chicago, folks. Nathan Hale Elementary. And my guest today is Corey DeAngelis, the school choice evangelist, and much, much, much more. Corey, you mentioned her, Lucy, in the previous segment, and that she makes $100,000 a year. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, she makes over 100,000 a year. I mean, I found the not open secrets, it was open payrolls. They show government employees' salaries. And the latest data they had was from 2023. So it's probably higher now, but it showed 103,000 and some change. So, this is an elementary school teacher. I went and looked at the principal there as well. People are emailing them in mass right now. I've emailed the principal as well, haven't gotten a response. I called the school earlier today. They have a lot of different options about, press this if you want to talk to this person, this if you want to talk to this person. I tried them all. It goes to a full voicemail box on every single one. So they're getting a lot of inbound negative feedback right now. And some people like me, I just wanted to call to get a statement. Like, what is your statement? Because they haven't said anything publicly about it. But you see this woman, of course, she's a member of the freaking Chicago public school system where they have 55 public schools with not a single kid proficient in math, despite them spending $30,000 in taxpayer money per student per year. These are failure factories in Chicago, and it shouldn't be surprised us when you have people like this who are in control of trying to teach kids. I bet you she's injecting that politics into the classroom. She's probably not teaching the basics. I believe she's a STEM teacher, so she's supposed to be focused on the hard sciences, math and science, but I bet you she's failing at her job doing that. If she's going and protesting in these No Kings protests, which were backed by Randy Weingarten's American Federation of Teachers, by the way, they were one of the chief sponsors of this event. I found another video today that someone had replied to me that they had found on her husband's Facebook account. He was live streaming the event. And what it shows is the angle that the husband was recording from right behind the teacher. And so we have both angles. you can see what the teacher was looking at, and it's very clear. It's a red truck that's passing by that has a boy holding a flag that just says, Charlie Kirk's a hero, 1993 to 2025, honoring his legacy and his life, basically. And she's over there doing that motion, mocking his assassination, getting shot in the neck. And so the school knows that they're in they're in pretty big trouble right now, publicly at least. They shut down their website yesterday once this went viral. I thought they had just taken her off the website, but no, you go to any web page associated with Nathan Hale Elementary School in Chicago, it says we're currently under construction. So they've taken the website down. You try to email them, they don't respond. You try to call them, it goes to a full voicemail box. Nobody answers. And so still, it's the end of the workday basically for the public school system. I haven't seen anything of some sort of response or statement, and hopefully they say something by tomorrow. But really, either way, whether they say something or not, this shows you that parents, eternal vigilance is the price of liberty, and you need to pay attention what's going on in your child's classroom, because you may have 5 teachers that are great at the public school, but if you have 1 or 2 or a couple of the others that are like this lady, they are helping, whether you like it or not, they're raising your child for that certain period of time throughout the day. They are taking care of your child, and they are probably letting their bias into the classroom, whether directly or indirectly. Your kids are going to learn from that. Kids are like sponges. They learn everything around them. And so, even if it's not a conscious decision of the teacher to say something negative about Trump, or to, just the way they act about information that they're hearing around them, that kids are going to pick up on that. So you should homeschool your kids if you can. I know that's really difficult, but push for school choice as an alternative solution as well. And what's really sickening here, Rob, is that Chicago used to have a school choice voucher program, a scholarship program for low-income kids. It was a tax credit scholarship program. And about 9,000 kids were using it until 2 years ago in 2023. The Democrats in the legislature did not lift a finger to save that program. It was a 4-year or so pilot program that was set to expire. The legislators were required to go and vote to extend it. But since they did it, they basically said, put the blinders on and let these low-income kids lose their scholarships, forcing them back into dangerous schools that don't teach a single kid how to read, write, or do math. And all for what? Because they're owned, they're in bed with the teachers unions. Because why? Politicians care about money, and the Democrats control Illinois right now, and they are ultimately a wholly owned subsidiary of the teachers unions, who give them so much money. And that's why Randy Weingarten and Becky Pringle have so much sway over the school system and over blue state education systems. And that's why Mayor Brandon Johnson's in Chicago right now. He was a former organizer with the Chicago Teachers Union, and they funneled over $4 million to his campaign in Chicago. And now we have basically the union bargaining with someone who's supposed to have a different interest from them, the mayor, but they're the one and the same. They're on the same team. They're not sitting there at the opposite side of the bargaining table. They're on the same side, and they're not talking about how do we help the taxpayer, how do we help the kids. They're talking about how do we enrich the union bosses like Stacey Davis Gates, who sends her own kid to a private school.
Yeah. I'm glad you brought that
total
up.
hypocrites.
But I wanted to ask you if you've obviously looked at that voucher program that they let die. What were most of the parents and kids choosing to do with the vouchers? Go to a private school of some sort?
Yeah, in Illinois, the program only allowed you to use it for private school tuition and fees. Obviously, it could stay in your public school, and then it would be business as usual. You still have that option on the table. But other states like where I live in Texas, we're rolling out a new school choice program this upcoming school year. Florida, Arizona, a lot of states are doing what we call education savings accounts now, where you can use the funding for private school if you want. But if that's not the best option, let's say you're in a rural area where there's not a lot of brick and mortar private schools, let's say Mississippi. If you want to do a homeschooling scenario, You can use an ESA funding to pay for homeschool curriculum. You can use it for micro schools, kind of like this re-envisioned one-room schoolhouse. I was in Florida actually a couple weeks ago with this school called the Academy at the Park, and it's in the middle of kind of wilderness. It's really cool, and the kids kind of use this Waldorf style curriculum that the homeschoolers use oftentimes, where you're learning about physics in the classroom, but then you go and you make a bow and arrow to apply those concepts to the world around you. So I think that's how real learning actually happens. And I believe most of their kids, if not all of them, at that school, they have enrollment of over 100 already. They're using scholarships in Florida to do this. So this isn't, something that's kind of pie in the sky. It's not something that's hasn't been tried before. Florida's had school choice for over 2 decades. And so this is kind of the future of education, getting people to use their money that's meant for their child. It's supposed to be meant for the kids, at least. The unions try to confiscate that funding for themselves, but you can use it for the provider that works best for you. And that could be a private school, but it could be even an online school. I mean, I know a lot of people might not like a virtual school setting, but some homeschoolers even like to use virtual schools if they don't feel like if they feel like they need extra assistance from online learning as well. And so there's like American Virtual Academy has sprouted up as an anti-woke virtual private school. So there's a whole bunch of options it's like 1,000 flowers are blooming. And it's because people like Randy overplayed their hand when they closed the schools, showed families the rot in the school system, and that rot hasn't gone away. The Marxists are in retreat. They're trying to hide from the things that they're doing, but parents are not letting them go that easy, and they're paying more attention than ever before.
Yeah, local action, folks. Local action has national impact. Parents paying attention to their classrooms and their school boards, I think, is key. Corey, you hit on that very well. When folks choose to go from a public school that's a failing school, or one that's got violence in it and those kind of things, I agree with you. I think these curriculums that are out there. I homeschooled my youngest son from 7th grade to 12th grade because he's autistic, and we used a BECA, ABEAEKA, which is a combined, not technically online, but uses digital content and everything. But he has come out. He's 21 now, and from an American values perspective, I mean, he's come out as an American kid that wants to be an automotive mechanic, has taken welding and gotten certified in structural welding, and is looking to go that type of profession. But it's his well-being that when I ask him about, hey, are you? He's got a job, so I ask him, how much are you saving? Because I've taught him, pay yourself first and build up some savings for emergencies and everything. And we were talking about the government shutdown and how it's impacting his brother's small family who works as a civilian for the Air Force and is furloughed right now. And my son said, well, Dad, I've got so much money in the savings account. If it were to happen to me, I would be okay. And that's the way he's been ever since he graduated from high school, when I would have these little discussions with him about simple things like jobs, financing, and everything. It's a very basic American focus on save, work hard, don't buy into the craziness. And now he's going to be looking at, starting a family here soon, I'm sure.
There you go. And that's the ultimate goal, right? Charlie Kirk said it best: get married, have children, pursue the eternal, seek pure joy, and pass down your values. And, I'm trying to do that with my own family as well. We're discussing baby number 2, hopefully soon. And the school system and its over-reliance of focusing on test scores, which it's important as kind of an indicator of academic quality, especially if you're trapped there and you can't go somewhere else. But parents are choosing schools for a whole bunch of reasons. In fact, Florida, before they went universal on school choice, kind of opening the floodgates for everyone, they used to have a program called the Hope Scholarship, which was, if you were assigned to a school where you were being bullied each day and it was just a huge problem. I mean, the school could be an A-rated school, but it might not be the right fit for you. And so
Yeah.
you could get a voucher to go somewhere else. And so that's not necessary in Florida anymore because you can choose an alternative for whatever reason. Whereas in the past, they were kind of income targeted. And then also they'd have for special needs kids, they'd have it for all these different groups. And one of the groups was if you were being bullied, you can go somewhere else. But that really highlights that choice is important, not just for improving academic outcomes, but for getting kids into a safer institution. And yeah, not going to a place where they just push that, left-wing ideology. Vodi Bakum recently passed away, and I'm so sad to hear about that. But there was a viral clip of him that was going around the day that he passed away, where he said that, one day you're going to hear a rumor that Vodi Bakum is no more. But don't believe it. Don't believe it, he said, because he's with his Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ.
Yep.
And one of his best quotes, though, was that we cannot continue to send our children to Caesar for their education and be surprised when they come home as Romans. And that just really gets to the heart of the debate right now more than anything else, I think, because there are people who get into the school system who want to raise your kids for you with their worldview and their values, and that goes against everything that you're trying to do in the household, and that could push them into these institutions of higher indoctrination that we call universities, where they're strapping kids with debt, not giving them any skills, and just turning them into Democrat Marxist foot soldiers. And that's not gonna be really beneficial to on a job application to employers. That's not a skill. It's turning these kids into lifelong activists and protesters, people that go out into the streets for these No Kings protests that are aligned with the teachers unions. But we need alternative pathways. We need trade school. We need, if academia is right for you, if you want to go, look, and I'm one to talk, right? I did PhD. I went all the way through. Yeah. I thought I was going to go into academia, but I could have probably done better if I did an alternative pathway where I could get on the job training sooner, become an activist for school choice even sooner, start to write sooner, because, most of these degrees are just a credential treadmill where you're just getting a piece of paper. It's not actual skills that you're attaining for the vast majority of the time. And, along the way, while you're not getting skills, you have forces and powers at be in that system trying to sway your political persuasions. It didn't work on me, but I'm kind of an exception to the rule, I believe. And I thought I was going to go and be a professor, but I started to see really quick that, hey, everybody around me disagrees with me, and they don't really want to publish what I'm writing, because in one of my peer reviews, I'll just give you a little secret, Rob, that I had a study, my first one, found that school choice reduced crime in Milwaukee. Long-term data until the kids were about 20 or 30 years old. And we found a reduction in crime associated with school choice. The peer reviewer at one of the initial journals we submitted to said, well, it sounds like it's a causal relationship. It's rigorous, but you didn't talk about how the results related to whiteness, structural oppression, and power. Wow. So they've been doing the CRT thing for a long time. And I said, to hell with this. I'm going to go somewhere that kind of rewards me for my beliefs, as opposed to trying to work on this uphill battle nonstop. And so
absolutely.
it's a wild institution.
We got to go to our last break real quick, Corey. When we come back, though, we'll hear from Tate Reeves, the governor of Mississippi, and I want to get your take on the next level of the movement of education freedom in Mississippi, which has got a program called the Mississippi Miracle at this point, which is something that we did actually in the public schools at the created a third grade reading gate, which seems to be working well. But we've got a long way to go, I think. We'll be right back with Corey DeAngelis.
News is moving faster than ever, and so are we. Worldview Tube brings you 24/7 live stream coverage and now real-time alerts when it matters most. Once you have the Worldview Tube app installed, exit the app and navigate your way to Settings. In Settings, locate the tab labeled Notifications. Select the Notifications tab. Scroll down until you locate the Worldview Tube app icon. Select the tab And here, you can turn on and customize your notification experience for the Worldview Tube app. News doesn't wait, and neither should you. Turn on push notifications to stay informed. Every headline as it happens.
We should fund students, not systems. We should trust our parents, not bureaucrats. And we should embrace education freedom.
Back to the Rob Maness Show. It's More War Monday. We're talking about the political war on American values, our kids, their parents, and it's coming through the public school systems, folks. And that was Governor Tate Reeves, governor of my state here in Mississippi, from over a year ago with his priorities on school choice, funding students, not systems, education freedom. And my guest today is the evangelist for school choice, Corey DeAngelis, who has been in the state before many times to talk with policymakers about that. And Corey, Speaker of the House, Jason White's he's reprioritized school choice again this legislative session that's coming up, and I'm excited about it. And I know you've been looking closely at this process and policy development that's happened here in the state of Mississippi. What can folks expect from a new perspective to see in Mississippi to make our system even better?
Yeah, we need competition. We need the funding to follow the student, not the system. That clip from Tate Reeves is music to my ears. I mean, sounds familiar, doesn't it? I kind of came up with the catchphraise, fund students, not systems. Yeah, I don't think I wrote his speech, but it's great that people in power are listening. And earlier this year, I got into a little bit of a spat with we've been talking so much about Virginia, the Mississippi Democrat Party on social media, where they started to say something and they used ChatGPT to write their responses. They do this with a lot of their things. And you can tell by certain things that they do whenever like a statement says like, it's not just this, it's that, like you can tell like certain things that ChatGPT does over and over again. And so the Mississippi Democrat Party does this a lot, but they were responding to an argument and they said on X that, we don't fund the grocery stores. We fund the people to choose where to take their food stamps and which grocery store to go to. We don't fund the hospitals. And they went around this kind of logic. And I'm like, yeah, that's the argument for school choice. We shouldn't fund the schools. We should fund the kids. And the parents should be able to choose government school or non-government school. And so they ended up deleting that post after turning off their replies. They got ratioed into oblivion. And then Tate Reeves chimed in on X right after that. And he said, oh, it appears the Mississippi Democrats support school choice too now. Maybe we should call a special session and get everybody to vote for it because it's on the Republican Party platform. The Democrats are now saying they support it too. Let's just come and do a quick special session. I think he was halfway joking, but I kind of responded on X saying like, no, you should actually do this. You have supermajority control of Republicans, even without the Democrat vote in Mississippi. You should be able to get it done. I do see, shout out to Speaker Jason White leading on the issue very strongly this year, saying that is his top priority, education freedom. And I know there's a little bit of a hang up in the House. I've heard word on the street in Mississippi that the leader of the Senate, Delbert Hoseman's the hang up in Mississippi. But he sent his kids to private school. He should allow other families to have opportunities too. He shouldn't pull up the ladder from behind himself and squash opportunity for less advantaged families. But look, you either side with Donald Trump or you side with Joe Biden on this issue. You either side with Milton Friedman, the free market economist under Reagan, or you side with Randy Weingarten and the liberal left teachers union. This is a no-brainer in Mississippi. And guess what, Rob? 17 states have already passed universal school choice, meaning, everybody gets access. We're not picking winners and losers anymore. It's really going from 0 to 100 real quick. 17 states have done this since 2021 in 4 years alone. And guess what they've all been? They've all been red states. Why? Because again, the unions control the Democrats. They give them all their political contributions. So why in the world would any Republican that's in elected office cave to the teachers unions is beyond me. But the reality is, Rob, that in red states, when there is a supermajority control of Republicans, the unions are dumb in a lot of ways, but they know politically that they're not going to get a Democrat majority. So in a purple state, they'll go all in for the Democrats to try to tip the scales in their favor.
Yeah.
But in a deeper red state, like even my home state of Texas, the Democrats were doing, the teachers unions were doing this here as well. They would endorse Republicans. They would go into the primaries and tell their voters and their members, I know you can't, vote for a Democrat, they're not on the ballot, but go vote for the person who opposes school choice in the primaries. They do this in Mississippi as well. They do this in Texas. Thankfully, we beat those fake Republicans in the primaries in 2023, and now 2/3 of them who voted against school choice lost their seats immediately. But this has basically become a parental rights issue. It's a GOP litmus test issue. And the main argument they would use in Texas, Rob, that they're now going to use in Mississippi is that, well, we have rural areas. We don't have a lot of private schools. So that means we get an excuse. We can check a box, have it both ways, and not vote for our own priorities. But, well, if it's true you don't have a lot of private schools, then you should be the last person arguing this is going to defund your public schools. Because if there's nowhere else to go, then you're fine. You should have nothing to worry about, especially if your public schools are so great. You shouldn't be concerned about a little bit of competition. But at the end of the day, even in rural areas, families want choice too. And we saw that in poll after poll in Texas from every single university out here, even universities that used language that was loaded terms against school choice. We still found majority support regardless of political affiliation, race, demographics, income, even regardless of your geography. In fact, the rural voters were actually more supportive of school choice than the urban voters in those polls.
That's interesting. The one issue I've come across, I interviewed a conservative talk show radio show host. You may have been on a show before, Clay Edwards, who's out of Jackson, a little bit over a week ago. And he said what he's hearing from parents in that area was about the moral rot in the Jackson and the Delta public school system being transferred out to other systems that's going to cause problems. And 24 hours later, Corey, there were 5 homeschool shootings in schools in Benny Thompson's district, which is Jackson and the Delta and those kind of things. So kind of put a fine point on that. From a policy perspective, how do we shape the policy to address that concern?
Yeah, I mean, private schools need to have as much autonomy as possible. And that's basically how the bills have been crafted in recent years, where the private schools can keep their discipline standards, they can keep their admission standards. I would be against the bill that said that the private schools have to accept all students regardless of, their whether they buy into the mission or whether they're going to follow the rules at school. And so you can't surrender your admission processes over to the state. That's going to cripple the program. And you know what happens, Rob? Every time a school choice bill is about to pass, the Democrats will try to attach all these amendments to the bill. And one of the main ones that they know will kind of cripple the program with conservatives is to try to say that, the private school is just going to be another public school. We're just going to hamper all of it down with regulations. But you just, again, eternal vigilance is the price of liberty. You got to fight against those regulations. And the government can already regulate private and home education today. The best way we fight back against those authoritarians is to band together, build a coalition. What better way to do so than to have school choice, have more people benefit from private and home education, then they'll be more likely to have an incentive to fight back against government overreach in the future. So I hear the concern, and school choice will reduce the likelihood of those problems happening, especially if you craft the bill the right way. So voters should pay attention. Look at what's in the bill. If there's a poison pill amendment saying that you have to teach CRT, which, by the way, a bill has never passed with that kind of amendment in there. There is no school choice program in America that requires you to teach CRT. I think that would be a First Amendment violation. I think it would get struck down in the courts anyway. But the conservatives aren't dumb. They're not going to pass a bill that says, we have to put lefty politics into the private schools. So, but at the end of the day, parents need to be loud. They need to be clear about what they want, and they need to pay attention. And so I'll be reporting on these things throughout session. Hopefully there's a special session. Mississippi has been a head scratcher for a while as to why you don't have school choice. I think it's the prime moment to do it, especially with Tate Reeves and Jason White leading on the issue.
Yeah, I certainly would have liked to have had access to the tax dollars when I was paying for my son's curriculum. And I was in a good position.
Right, but at least
you'll
benefit from having a better country, right? Even if your kids aren't in this, it would have been great. But we got to take our country back, and there's just so many kids going through these schools being raised by people who are just like Randy Weingarten in some cases.
Absolutely. Well, Corey, thank you very much for joining us today and spending so much time with us. We definitely appreciate it. Hope to see you when you come down here. Hopefully you'll get down here over the next few months as we go through this process here and get this thing passed.
That's the plan. Hope to see you soon.
All right, sir. Thank you very much. Tomorrow's Training Tuesday. We'll be talking to an expert on how to keep schools from tagging and labeling your child as something like ADHD permanently for life and causing all kinds of problems throughout their lives. We'll see you then on the Worldview Tube Network and the Rob Maness Show.